Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of a science fiction fantasy horror film from 1999, and it's an independent film, and that movie is Alien Blood. I have it part of this Troma triple B header. These movies that Troma released that were just basically three of their lesser popular titles in one, and you could pick them up for like $5 or less, and you're like, hey, I got three Troma movies that might be good, because sometimes Troma's really good. Example being the closest Troma film near me, Class of Nuke 'Em High, one of Troma's best films. But it could also end up being kind of okay, and then eventually, like Blood Freaks, or it could end up growing on me like Blood Freaks. Or it could be completely terrible like Dumpster Baby. Let's hope it's not the last one. This movie has to do with a pregnant woman being chased by masked assassins while protecting her daughter and her unborn child. And she decides to hide in a house full of horny vampires. And somehow this has to do with aliens. I think this is the only movie in existence that has aliens and vampires. Let's hope it's good. The fact that it has about a 2.3 out of 10 average rating on IMDb makes me fear and dread watching this, but maybe it'll be good. I'll be back in like 90 minutes, I guess. Hey guys, I'm back. So, the film opens up with some screeching sounds and then a mother crying over the corpse of her child. I assume that's what's happening. And a very bad looking, like, CGI UFO appears in the sky. And it was apparently just a dream, and the woman wakes up in, like, I guess a mansion or whatever, because this butler comes in with a tray, and she just kind of beats the shit out of him and kills him before we get a very long scene, just like a long credit sequence, that is, I'm not even joking, probably about 5 or 6 minutes long. Probably one of the longest opening credit sequences I've ever seen. And I mean, at least the credits do not look like they were made in Windows Movie Maker. At least there's that. And the music over it is kind of creepy. But then we have a forensics team kind of cleaning up the crime scene, and they're not following protocol at the actual protocol at all. Yeah, I mean, it made me cringe a little bit, I'll be honest. And basically we get this long montage, I mean, like, this long, like, probably 5 or 6, maybe 7-minute long montage, just cutting between the woman and her child, another woman, a pregnant woman and her child, and then the forensics team. And it goes on for a while. So it's pretty painstakingly horrible. It's probably more painstakingly horrible than watching just 4 minutes of Empire. So we finally get to the mother actually doing something with her child, and we finally get some dialogue in this movie. We're 11 minutes in, and we get our first bit of dialogue. A single line that is spoken by a farmer before the woman beats the shit out of him, gives him some money, and then takes his horse. And then there's really nothing of interest going on here. And in the scene with the horse, where the horse is obviously there, it's obviously in the shot, they felt the need to put like really cheap, bad, like stock horse like noises and like horse grunts and neighs and stuff like that in order to make this, I guess, realistic. But all it did was kind of ruin a scene that was already pretty bad in the first place. So she's just riding off into the sunset with her child. No dialogue yet from her or her child. Look, Pink Floyd's The Wall had more dialogue within the first 11 minutes than this, within the first hour, than this movie. It had more dialogue within the first 10 minutes than this movie does, and it's like first, I want to say, maybe 15 minutes. So, apparently, after we get another long montage of the two mothers and two children in the middle of nowhere, we finally find out that these two, like, pairs know each other, and they're just not talking or anything. They just kind of run into each other in the middle of nowhere. You don't know if they really know each other or not. They just kind of sit next to each other at a campfire, and that's it. Nothing happens. Then the next morning, the one chick that isn't, the one girl that isn't pregnant and her son go out walking, and then these guys, these assassins, show up and kill them both. I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit ridiculous. They shoot this kid, which is probably the most satisfying part about this scene, because even though this kid was quiet, he was still very annoying for some reason. The mother, and apparently these two are Riccio, because they're just walking up and like beating the shit out of people like it's nothing. They're like Riccio. It bothers me. So apparently one of the assassins must be blind, because there's literally a scene where the woman takes off her sunglasses, sits them on a rock, and then stands right next to the rock, where the assassin can visibly see she's like crouching there, and she still gets the slip on him somehow. She's still able to you know, just kind of sneak by him. I mean, not really sneak by him, she kind of attacks him, but he doesn't see her there, and she's just standing there. It's ridiculous. So, enough about that. And the kid getting shot, he also shows no emotion whatsoever. Man, this kid's a great actor. So, then we get, like, some dialogue from the woman before she is full on killed. And really, if you count screaming as screaming, and, you know, they're not really screaming any words, as dialogue, then this is some of the richest dialogue I've ever heard. Then we get a very bad scene of a CGI, like really bad CGI alien screaming. Why these bad guys are after these people, at this point I was assuming that they're aliens, and it even reveals it in the IMDb description that they are aliens. They are aliens that look like humans, although every other alien you see in this movie looks like one of those stereotypical kind of gray with big head kind of alien. I don't know why. Okay. It seems like Alien Blood was trying to be a kung fu horror comedy with art film camera work. The acting, all in all, is pretty bad. Same goes for the writing. The characters are mostly very flat, lifeless, boring, uninteresting, except for the leader of the assassins and a few of the vampires in this movie. They're all in all, those guys are, you know, kind of interesting, kind of cool. The only really interesting thing here is the camera work and the gore effects. The camera work looks like it was lifted out of, like, something from fucking Lars von Trier. It is better than the camera work in Lloyd, in most of the Troma films I've seen. It's better than camera work from Lloyd Kaufman And he is the head of Troma. He makes the best movies from Troma. And yet, this somehow has better, like, camera work. I don't know. Most of the effects, I'm going to assume, were spent on the camera work and the gore effects. Really, this movie isn't really that entertaining. I mean, the only real entertaining part of this movie is the gore effects. Some of these scenes with the camera work is kind of cool. Some of the scenes with the vampires is also kind of funny and cool. And the did I say gore effects? No, in the bad, like mid to late 90s CGI. Like, this is some of the worst 90s CGI I've ever seen. And honestly, the CGI is so bad that it kind of redeems this movie for me, honestly. It redeems it at least like 20%. 20%. On top of the maybe other, I want to say, 10 from the gore effects and everything else. So, it's really not, but even this doesn't make it really worth watching. The lighting, sound mix, music, those are all good. But still, all these good things do not make it worth watching. In the, well, not in the slightest, but it doesn't make it worth watching in my personal opinion. But the movie does get kind of entertaining when it switches gears completely, and we just, like, suddenly drop the aliens and get to vampires. And this segment where we just see vampires is probably, I want to say, a good 20 minutes long. And it's probably the best 20 minutes of the movie, because it's the funniest, most interesting 20 minutes of the movie, because there's actually something happening, and there's actually dialogue. And apparently, the head vampire, and these vampires are the kind of stereotypical, like, 70s, 80s kind of, like, hammer horror kind of vampires, just really pale with, like, red around the eyes, and and fangs, and that's really it. And they also dress like they're from the Victorian era. So they're kind of stereotypical vampires, which I kind of like that. And their leader is Dracula. The head vampire is Dracula. So that means this film is technically a Dracula film. This makes me a tiny bit sick, I'll be honest. And, like, at this point, the movie becomes kind of decent. And then we reach the 47-minute mark, and we learn that our two main characters, the aliens, do not speak English, and they actually speak French, so they're French aliens. I'd just like to say that again. French fucking aliens. I don't know whether that's good or bad, because honestly, I kind of like it, but I kind of think it's stupid. I guess that's the excuse they came up with for not having dialogue for, like, the first, like, 20 minutes of the movie. I mean, I'm not gonna take that excuse, honestly. But, I mean, just one thing I'd like to add to this film. This movie had a budget of £1 million. Now, pounds is the currency in the UK. But £1 million, I mean, while that is pennies in money for making movies, I mean, like, the Toxic Avenger had a budget of, like, I think a few thousand. I want to say maybe $300,000. And that movie is far superior to this one. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like The Corpse Grinders, and 10 being something like Brain Dead. Alien Blood is a 5, maybe a 5.5. For the most part, it's just blood. All in all, I can't really recommend this movie unless you're looking for some of the worst movies I've ever made. This movie's bad, but it probably gets good after the first 40 minutes are over. After the first 40 minutes, it's pretty good. But considering this movie has an 80-minute runtime, that doesn't really make it worth watching. It's kind of like my relationship with Subconscious Cruelty. The first 40 minutes of Subconscious Cruelty is great. The Last 40 is horrible. So I've got to give this one like a 1.5 stars out of 5. Star and a half out of 5. Let's hope the other movies on this Troma movie B-header, triple B-header, whatever, this set of 3 Troma movies, let's just hope the other ones are a bit better. Anyway guys, I'm BiscuitBoo69, signing off. Peace.